Her son told her to move to the basement just until after ski season. Martha Grayson, retired professor and sole owner, didn't argue. Kyle, entitled and brash, called it our family inheritance, like it was already his. By dusk, Martha had changed the locks, the deed, and the will. She'd been his mother for decades now. She was the only one holding the keys. And when he tried to sell what wasn't his, the law shut the door in his face. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The snow hadn't started yet, but the chill was already in the walls. Martha Grayson stepped through the front door with one suitcase in hand and a paper grocery bag balanced on her hip. The bag carried lemons, herbal tea, and a jar of Carla's pear, preserves things she never left a visit without. She clicked the door shut behind her with the heel of her foot and called out softly, "I'm back." No one answered. She walked toward the hallway out of habit, dragging her suitcase gently behind her. There was a smell in the air, vanilla candles and too much dryer sheet. Artificial comfort. At the end of the hall, where her bedroom had been for nearly 3 decades, the door was wide open. But the room had changed. The antique dresser was gone. Her quilt, a wedding gift from 1972, folded in half at the foot of the bed, which wasn't her bed anymore. The mattress had been replaced with a sleek, impersonal set of bedding in slate gray and ivory. Her bookshelf was cleared. In its place, a suitcase, half unzipped. The scent of foreign perfume hung in the air like someone had tried to scrub her presence and missed a new one over it. Kyle appeared in the doorway, grinning as if he were announcing a new kitchen remodel. "Hey, you made it back early. Todd and Marianne flew in yesterday. From Boston Toddle last minute." Martha looked from him to the room, her eyes slow, deliberate. Her fingers tightened slightly on the suitcase handle. "We figured this would be the easiest way," Kyle continued, as if he were solving something. "You know how many stairs are between here and the basement? Barely any. And it's warm down there mostly." Erica stepped in from the kitchen, smoothing the sleeves of a cashmere sweater. Her voice was syrupy, too upbeat. "We tried to make it cozy. We set up the fold-out with that navy flannel set you liked. And there's a space heater. Oh, Hand, I put that little lamp you like down there." Martha nodded once, politely, like a woman nodding to a waiter who'd brought the wrong dish but was too tired to send it back. She made her way down the narrow steps to the basement, careful, even, steady. The carpet runner was gone, just cold wood and the click of her heels. The basement was cleaner than it used to be, but it was still a basement. The cement walls had been painted off-white years ago, now flaking at the edges. A fold-out cot with a thin mattress sat against the wall. A scratchy wool blanket was folded on top. The space heater hummed softly in the corner like it was trying to pretend it belonged. A single duffel bag leaned against the wall, her things, apparently relocated without discussion. Martha stood in the center of the room for a long moment. Then came a whisper. Rachel stood halfway down the steps, her voice soft, heavy. "They said it's just until after ski season, that Todd and Marianne needed room to breathe." Martha turned, her eyes meeting her granddaughter's. Rachel's cheeks were pink from the cold, her arms folded tight across her chest, like she was trying to shield herself from what she couldn't fix. "I'm sorry," Rachel added. Martha gave the smallest shake of her head. No blame, no heat, just understanding. She turned back to the cot and set the suitcase down beside it, unzipped it, folded the few blouses she'd brought, hung her scarf on a chair that wasn't quite steady. She pulled a paperback from the side pocket, Willa Cather's The Professor's House, and set it on the rickety nightstand. Then she sat. The air smelled like concrete and lavender dryer sheets, a mix of things scrubbed and things left too long. Upstairs, someone laughed. A door opened. Glasses clinked. Down here, Martha reached into the bag from Carla's and pulled out the jar of pear preserves. She placed it on the windowsill beside the heater. A soft pop echoed as the seal on the jar relaxed in the warmth. She said nothing, but her silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. The basement had no door, just a landing and a silence that filtered down like dust. But even without a lock, Martha felt walled off. She rose early the next morning, before the house stirred, coffee in one hand, reading glasses in the other. The old banker's box she'd brought down weeks ago sat untouched in the corner, its edges softened by time. She set her mug beside it, slid the top off, and pulled out the thick legal folder marked in her late husband's handwriting. Property, Grayson residence. Inside, 30 years of deeds, tax receipts, warranty documents. At the center, stapled in blue-backed legal paper, was the revocable trust. Her name, still primary. Her signature, in ink that hadn't faded. No one else's. No Kyle. No Erica. She traced the embossed notary seal with her thumb and allowed herself a slow breath. Upstairs, the floor creaked. Laughter, then a flush of running water. Todd, probably, with his endless showers and podcast voice. Erica had said guests with such polish, like it were a charity, not an invasion. She pulled out her phone and dialed from memory. Grayson, Miles Renner's voice answered, raspy but warm. Still got my number memorized? I do, she said. Are you still offering quiet counsel? For you? Always. I need to confirm something. Privately. She didn't say Kyle's name. She didn't need to. By noon, they were sitting in the back office of a small legal suite on Pearl Street. Miles wore a soft cardigan and glasses that had slipped too far down his nose. His desk smelled of eucalyptus oil and carbon copies. You're still the sole trustee, he said after a few keyboard clicks. The title's clean. Kyle's never been added. Erica's never been named. No secondary claimants. It's all still your Severy nail, every shingle, every root. Martha nodded. Then I want to keep it that way. And I don't want them to know I've reconfirmed anything. Miles squinted. You want to schedule a deed review under an alias? Not an alias, Martha said, her voice steady. My maiden name. He smiled. Got it. Old school espionage. She slid a sheet across the desk. Here's the P.O. box. Use that for any mail. Back at home, the afternoon light had started pouring through the narrow basement window. The angle made everything look golden, like the room was apologizing for its own design. Atop the folded cot sat a single square post-it. Rachel's handwriting was unmistakable around, slanted letters she never dotted quite evenly. You shouldn't have to sleep down there. Martha smiled faintly, peeled it from the blanket, and tucked it into her pocket. Just then, there was a soft knock from the top of the stairs. Carla's voice filtered down. You decent? Martha climbed halfway up to meet her. Carla held out a small USB drive, worn smooth on one side. Backups, she said. Everything Miles ever filed for you, plus the scan stuff I saved when you had that cabinet leak. Martha took it wordlessly, held it in her palm. Why now? Carla asked. Martha didn't blink. Because they've started rehearsing ownership, and I'd rather they never get past dress rehearsal. Carla gave a small, admiring snort, spoken like a woman who taught 5 decades of freshmen how to shut up and read the fine print. They parted with a nod. No hug. Not yet. That would come when the ink dried. That night, Kyle joked at dinner about our family estate and how we might open it up for Airbnb when ski season ended. Gotta maximize the investment, he said, laughing into his glass. Martha just looked at her bowl of stew and stirred gently. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. But later, back in the basement, she inserted the USB into her old laptop. A folder popped open. Grayson Trust. Martha only. Subfolder. Contingencies. She clicked once. Then again. The screen glowed softly in the dim room. Above her, they talked. Below them, she planned. And in her pocket, the post-it note stayed warm against her palm. It started with the slippers. Martha came upstairs one morning to refill the kettle and found her slipper-slined terry cloth perfectly broken and missing from the mudroom. In their place sat a pair of hiking boots, crusted with snow and carelessness. Todd's. She didn't say anything, just poured the water, waited for the boil, and carried her mug back downstairs with the deliberate grace of someone who used to teach students how to handle antique manuscripts. By the end of the week, Todd and Marianne had colonized the living room. Their ski gear draped across the back of Martha's reading chair. Yoga mats unrolled in front of the fireplace. A Bluetooth speaker whispered ambient playlists, even when no one was in the room. Every time Martha climbed the stairs, it felt like she was stepping into a life that had already voted her off the island. Mom's got the best air circulation downstairs anyway, Kyle said over brunch one Saturday, laughing into his omelet. Basements are underrated. Erica didn't laugh. She smoothed her napkin and looked at Martha like a manager assessing a difficult employee. Later that evening, Martha dared to run a small load of laundry upstairs, just sheets, and a sweater that needed gentler heat. She timed it carefully. waited until Marianne and Todd left for dinner. But the second she pulled the damp bundle from the dryer, Erica appeared in the doorway, arms crossed over her pristine sweater set. "We really need to. Coordinate washer access," she said crisply. "The schedule's been kind of tight." Martha stared at her, then folded the sweater with clean, precise edges. Understood. She carried her things back downstairs without slamming the door. That night, she found a small bundle wrapped in tissue paper on her cot. A fuzzy pair of lavender socks, a heated throw, still in its packaging. A note, in Rachel's handwriting. "No one should be cold in their own home." Martha ran a hand over the blanket and exhaled slowly. The kind of breath that didn't rise with anger, it sank with resolve. She unfolded the notepad she kept by her bedside and wrote a single sentence across the top. "In the event of my passing, Kyle Grayson shall inherit nothing." It wasn't rage. It was rhythm. By morning, she'd typed the draft in clean 12-point font, ready to send to Miles. A few days later, she stood in Carla's kitchen, sipping lukewarm coffee while her sister slammed a pan of cornbread into the oven like it had personally insulted her. "They want you out so bad," Carla said. "Give them what they want, but not the way they expect." Martha arched a brow. "What way do you mean?" "The permanent way," Carla said. "The clean cut. Not some vague threat with a paper trail, give 'em the real scalpel." Martha didn't respond, but she folded the printout of the updated estate trust into her purse like it was a sealed verdict. The snow kept falling. February turned into March. March pretended to be spring for 3 days, then pulled back into sleet. In the upstairs hall, Todd now kept a guitar he never played. Marianne left essential oil diffusers in the bathroom and, accidentally, took Martha's eucalyptus lotion on 2 occasions. "Oops," she'd said both times. "I just thought it was part of the guest setup." Downstairs, Martha reorganized her file safe. Receipts, title documents, the USB Carla had given her, a new printout from Miles, Draft Trust 5.2, successor, Rachel Grayson. She placed it on top of the stack. By mid-month, the house felt like a poorly cast play, everyone overacting in a role they hadn't earned. Except Martha. She'd stopped auditioning. She was rewriting the script. One evening, while Todd held court over drinks and Spotify playlists in the living room, Martha sat at the bottom of the stairs and listened. She didn't climb. She didn't interrupt. She opened her laptop instead, copied the updated trust documents to an encrypted folder, and sent Miles the final draft. Upstairs, Kyle laughed about planning the estate again. Downstairs, Martha sent the plan. She didn't need to explain. She just needed the ink to dry. The click was soft but definitive. Martha heard it just as she was rinsing out her teacup, a gentle snick of metal above her head. She looked up toward the top of the staircase. The door had been left ajar that morning. Now it was shut. She climbed halfway up and reached for the knob. It didn't turn. She tried again, firmer this time. Nothing. Footsteps passed briefly on the other side. Laughter, then fading voices. No one called down to her, no one explained. Martha descended slowly, her spine straight, her silence intact. She washed the cup, dried it, and placed it upside down on the folded dish towel near the sink. Then she opened the small drawer beneath the kitchenette and retrieved her notepad. The 18th of March, door now locked from above. That night, a crack of light cut across the basement ceiling. One of the recessed bulbs upstairs had been left on. Todd, presumably. The light bled through the gaps in the old floorboards. In the morning, she climbed the stairs again. The door remained locked. At breakfast, Todd made a show of waving a reusable coffee cup in the air. "Just a heads up, we'll be locking up at night for guest privacy. Don't want any weird midnight walk-ins, right?" He laughed like it was a harmless anecdote. Martha stood behind him, halfway into the room, not yet seated. Erica turned from the toaster, her smile sharp enough to cut butter. "We didn't think you'd be coming up much anyway. Didn't you say you liked your quiet time downstairs?" No one had said anything about locking her in. "I noticed the light was on last night," Martha said calmly, setting her mug down. Todd raised his eyebrows. "Oh, did we forget to turn it off? Thought I shut it. Weird." Erica tilted her head. "You've been leaving lights on too, Mom. Remember the porch one last week? Maybe you're just a little forgetful these days." Rachel looked up from her bowl. "She's not." The room stilled for half a beat. Then Erica changed the subjecto scones to ski passes to something forgettable. Rachel slipped downstairs that afternoon. Her eyes were red, voice tight. "They're pretending you're not even here." Martha didn't answer. They locked the door. "You're not a guest, and you're not family, but they're acting like you're nothing. I hate them for it." Still, Martha said nothing. But this time, she opened her suitcase. She didn't pack out of sadness. She packed out of precision. One pair of shoes, a stack of papers, the teacup wrapped in a towel, the hardbound copy of The Professor's House, pages annotated in ink from when she used to lecture on Midwestern American fiction. She reached beneath the cot and retrieved her file safe. The old keypad stuck slightly on the 5. She keyed in her birth year, 1949, and opened it. Then she pulled out the small screwdriver she kept taped to the bottom and flipped the case over. Resetting the code took 2 minutes. When she finished, she keyed in a new sequence, the date of her wedding anniversary. She snapped it shut. Upstairs, wind rattled the window panes. Boulder was getting its spring snow early wet and fast. Later that evening, Carla dropped off a container of minestrone and a small envelope. "No need to open it now," she said. "Just something you may want when the time comes." "What time?" "The one they think they've already scheduled without you." Martha didn't smile, but her eyes glinted. "Let them celebrate what they think they own," Carla added. "You and I both know the deed's still in your drawer." After Carla left, Martha sat with the envelope unopened beside her, the soup steaming gently. She listened to the muffled sounds above the same speaker Todd played every night, the clink of glasses, the occasional high-pitched laugh that didn't belong to this house. Then she opened her notebook again. The 19th of March, code changed, record secured. She placed the page on top of the trust packet. Tomorrow, she'd make a call to Miles. But tonight, she'd wait. Not because she was trapped, because they thought she was. And they were wrong. Miles Renner slid the document across his desk with the same care a surgeon might use setting down a scalpel. His glasses rested low on his nose, one lens slightly smudged. The ink on the paper was still drying. "This revision supersedes everything prior," he said. "Revocable trust, durable power of attorney. All clauses dated before the 20th of March now null. The house transfers directly to Rachel. No conditions, no steps." Martha nodded, hands folded, expression unreadable. "And the no contest clause?" she asked. Miles tapped the second page. "Right here. If Kyle attempts legal interference contesting, delay, even a written objection, he forfeits all claim to financial support, assets, and named privileges. And Erica? Her name has been formally removed from all emergency access rights. No medical, no financial, no property." A long silence settled in the room. Outside, the wind scraped softly at the windows. Martha took the pen. Her signature landed clean and level, every stroke measured. She flipped each page and initialed where needed. Left margin, lower right, final seal. Then she slid the final document into the leather folder Miles kept, only for clients who understood permanence. When she looked up, she said, "I want to prepare a secondary envelope." Miles tilted his head. "Testamentary or instructional?" "Neither. Personal." He nodded. "You'll write it. I'll seal it. It'll only be opened upon confirmed event of death." Martha nodded. "Label it as such." As she pulled out a small stack of lined stationery, Carla stepped into the room. She held up her phone. "Smile, sister. For backup." Martha didn't smile, but she didn't object either. Carla snapped 4 photos. One of the signed documents, one of the notary seal, one of Martha holding the folder, and one of the 2 women side by side. "Proof," Carla said. "For the day someone claims you were confused or coerced, let them chew on time-stamped metadata." Martha slid the envelope into the folder and clasped it shut. Miles placed it in his locked drawer, clicked the key, and nodded once. "It's done." By the time she returned home, the afternoon light had tilted golden through the back windows. The mountains beyond the porch were dusted in white, the sky clear and sharp. Inside, the upstairs echoed with laughter and glass. Martha didn't go up. She walked to the far wall of the basement, opened the hidden panel behind the shelving unit, and slid the new folder into its slot beside the file safe. That night, Rachel knocked once before entering. She carried a folded throw and a paperback. "You left this in the laundry," she said. Martha took the book. "Thank you." But Rachel lingered. Grandma, she said quietly, I know something's happening. You don't have to tell me all of it. Just, am I part of it? Martha paused. Then she stood. She opened the small drawer by the bed and pulled out a single keyone with a sunflower fob and a metal tag that read, Safe. She placed it in Rachel's hand. You're the reason it still means anything. Rachel looked down at the key, eyes welling. Then she stepped forward and hugged her grandmother, tight arms around her waist, like a child who still believed in good endings. I'll never forget this, she whispered. Martha rested her chin lightly atop her granddaughter's head. That's the point. Upstairs, the lock clicked shut again for the night. But down here, something else had been unlocked entirely. And behind the panel, nestled in a fireproof folder, the future had just changed hands. The scent hit first bitter, smoky, wrong. Not the slow warmth of roasting garlic or the sweetness of caramelizing onions. This was acrid, burnt cheese and scorched metal. Martha stepped into the kitchen just as Erica yanked the oven door open. Smoke billowed out like a curtain in retreat, curling upward toward the ceiling fan that never quite worked on time. Damn it, Erica hissed, waving her dish towel in frantic figure eights. The casserole dish was black around the edges, the center sunken and bubbling like tar. Todd and Marianne leaned against the far counter, wine glasses in hand, expressions carefully neutral. Kyle arrived seconds later, sniffed the air, and raised his eyebrows. Did someone forget the timer? Erica turned sharply, cheeks flushed. No, set the timer. But I think the oven temp got changed, probably bumped. Her eyes swung to Martha like a compass to blame. Did you use it today? Martha, calm, hands washed and folded, said nothing. Oh, come on, Mom, Erica pressed. You were in here earlier. Maybe you leaned on the knob without realizing. Martha looked at the oven, then at the guests. Her face didn't harden, but it cooled slow and frostbitten. She spoke only once. I haven't cooked in weeks. Rachel was at the table, silent, watching her mother closely. Marianne tried to laugh. It's fine. We'll order something. Ty? Todd offered, already pulling out his phone. Erica huffed. I spent all day on this, but no one corrected her. No one challenged her story. Not until later that night. Downstairs, Martha changed into her house sweater and wiped down her tea mug with the quiet efficiency of ritual. The room smelled faintly of sandalwood and insulation. Rachel appeared in the doorway holding her phone, face tight. Can I show you something? Martha nodded. Rachel swiped through the home security app installed last summer after a string of neighborhood package thefts. She opened a video file time-stamped 4 hours earlier. It showed the kitchen empty, save for Erica leaning against the counter, texting, sipping water. She never touched the oven, never even crossed near it. I went to check it because I just knew, Rachel said. You didn't touch anything. You don't even walk into that side of the kitchen anymore. Martha didn't speak, but her eyes lingered on the screen, just long enough for the evidence to burn itself into permanence. Thank you, she said softly. By morning, she was on the phone with the utility companies. Yes, full transfer of all service accounts, gas, electric, water, broadband back into my sole name, she told the representative. Yes, I'm the homeowner. Yes, I have the deed. Then she called Miles. I want something on record, she said. Miles didn't hesitate. Notarized affidavit of ownership affirmation? Filed with the county clerk. Consider it done. That afternoon, Carla arrived with her hair in pin curls and a tool belt slung across one hip. Martha raised an eyebrow. New hobby? Old one, Carla said. Fixing what jackasses think they can wiggle through. She headed straight for the back garden gate, the one Kyle still kept propped open with a rock. The lock was changed in under 10 minutes. You want the spare? Carla asked. Martha shook her head. Give it to Rachel. Upstairs, Erica was quiet for once, likely sulking, nursing the sting of failed performance. Kyle had gone into town for something vague and unnecessary. Todd and Marianne were hiking, which probably meant brunch and selfies. The house was still. And for the first time in weeks, Martha sat at the small table in the sunroom, the one facing the mountains. She sipped her tea and looked out across the yard she'd planted by hand, each flower bed measured by memory. Then she pulled out her notebook. The 22nd of March. Utilities reinstated. Locks secure. Affidavit filed. She set down the pen and looked toward the stairs. Let them laugh upstairs. She had the deed, the records, the power griddened now, the silence. And silence could be louder than fire. The morning sun was soft, not sharp hone of those rare boulder days when the breeze felt polite. Martha rose before the upstairs creaked awake, dressed in a cream cardigan and slate blue slacks, and stepped barefoot onto the garden path. The rosemary was blooming early. By 10 o'clock, folding chairs dotted the yard in irregular rows, nothing matching, some with floral cushions, others bare. She laid out a tray of lemon shortbread and a glass pitcher of black tea with fresh mint curled at the rim. No fanfare, no catered bites, just Martha and her home this time, shared on her terms. She'd made the calls herself 2 days earlier. To Joan, the former department chair who still sent her newspaper clippings. To Mr. and Mrs. Fields, her neighbors since '94. Even to Colleen, the gruff florist with opinions about every perennial on the block. No invitations, just conversations. No RSVPs, just arrivals. Martha remained in the shade by the climbing roses, greeting each guest with a nod and a gentle smile. She didn't say much, but the smiles they offered were wide, warm, and unforced. Rachel flitted between the table and the guests like a soft current. She placed napkins in steady piles, offered lemon wedges with quiet charm. Carla arrived just after noon, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and carrying a tray of deviled eggs shaped like they'd been sculpted with a protractor. "Real gathering," she said, squinting toward the porch. "Not a staged one," Martha nodded. "No hashtags, just roots." Carla smirked. "Amen." Upstairs, laughter erupted through an open window. Todd's voice carried something about a slope pass and bottomless mimosas. Erica's high, airy laugh followed, too loud for sincerity. Then the screen door creaked. Erica stepped out, squinting into the sunlight like it had betrayed her. Her eyes skimmed over the chairs, the trays, the people. Her mouth tightened. "Are we hosting something?" she asked, her tone brittle. Martha didn't flinch. "Tea." Erica glanced at the guests, then at the lemon tart being served by Rachel. "This would have been nice to know." Carla took a deliberate step forward. "It's not your address book, sweetheart." Erica turned sharply. "I wasn't talking to you." "Oh, I know," Carla said, adjusting her hat. "But I've got a stronger signal when entitlement starts barking." Erica blinked, caught between offense and confusion. Carla smiled. "She paid for every brick under your tantrum. You might want to remember that." Erica backed up without another word, retreating into the house with a slam. No one chased her. Martha didn't so much as glance toward the door. Instead, she reached into the small tin beside the tea tray and pulled out a neat stack of cream-colored envelopes. One by one, she handed them discreetly to guests as they stood to leave. "Just an address update," she said to each, "if you ever want to write." Each envelope was marked with careful ink. M. Grayson, P.O. Box 2000, 417, Boulder, Colorado. Not a single return address included. Carla watched from under her hat. "You're good," she murmured. "I'm thorough," Martha replied. As the guests filed out, hands waved, goodbyes exchanged. Someone snapped a photo. Rachel, standing a few paces back, catching her grandmother mid-laugh as Joan retold a story about a squirrel that once broke into her sunroom. Later that evening, Rachel placed the printed photo on Martha's desk in the basement, just beside the folded throw and annotated paperback. "I thought you should have it," she said. Martha looked at it for a long time at herself in that moment. Free, visible, upright. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. Upstairs, Erica stood at the window watching from behind the blinds, clutching her phone in one hand like it was supposed to save her from a world that didn't ask her permission. And on the counter behind her sat an untouched bottle of white wine and a plate of stale crackers for a party that never happened. Downstairs, Martha tucked the envelopes away and picked up her pen. The 24th of March, first gathering complete. Guest list, correct this time. Then she underlined it. Twice. Martha hadn't meant to clean. She only meant to shift a few things make room beneath the stairs for a second file box, move the rolled rugs she'd kept since the early 90s. But when she tugged too hard on the storage trunk wedged behind the water heater, something behind it shifted. A quiet thump. Then the sound of cardboard collapsing onto cement. She crouched slowly, brushing cobwebs from the beam with the side of her sleeve. A box, labeled in thick black Sharpie, for donation. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Erica's point. Martha stared at it for a moment, then pulled it forward into the light. The tape had already yellowed. It split with a tired sigh when she peeled it away. Inside, a stack of black and white wedding photos, some still in plastic sleeves. Her framed faculty award from 1983. The glass cracked at the corner. The leather-bound journal she'd kept after George died filled with loops of ink and grief and grace. 3 letters from former students. 1 hand-knitted shawl from Rachel, age 9, still tagged, to Grandma, for porch swings and tea. Martha sank to the floor. She didn't touch anything for a full minute. Then, carefully, she lifted 1 photo from the stack. Her and George in the backyard, arms around each other, barefoot on damp grass. She remembered that day. The hose had burst. He'd sprayed her with it. They'd laughed so hard the neighbors peeked through the fence. A shadow fell across the open box. Rachel stood in the doorway, her voice barely above breath. "What is all that?" Martha turned the photo toward her. Rachel knelt beside her, lifted the journal with both hands. She opened to a random page and read a few lines before she stopped, stunned. "She just put this in a box?" Martha gave a small nod. Rachel's voice cracked. "She just boxed up your whole life." "No," Martha said quietly. "She tried to." Rachel's eyes shimmered with a mix of disbelief and apology. "I'm so sorry." Martha closed the journal. "Don't be. They're not lost. They're just early." She stood, slower than she used to, but taller than she felt all winter. "Can you bring Carla tomorrow?" she asked. "I'd like to digitize these." The next morning, the basement hummed with a small flatbed scanner and the scent of fresh lavender from a candle Carla insisted on lighting to keep the mildew from winning, she said. Each page was passed with care. Each photo laid flat like an offering. Carla worked in short, efficient bursts. Rachel labeled folders on the desktop. Martha made notes in the margin of a fresh yellow legal pad. At noon, they took a break. Rachel sliced pears, Carla buttered rye toast, and Martha stared at a faded envelope tucked inside the wedding album. It was addressed to her. George's handwriting, softer now from time, but unmistakable. She opened it. Inside, just 1 sentence, scrawled in the back of a holiday card from decades ago. "Protect what you built, even if it means locking the doors behind you." Martha read it twice, then pressed the card to her chest and closed her eyes. By sunset, the last scan was complete. She opened her laptop, created a blank Word document, and typed in 12-point times, "Why I Took It Back." By Martha E. Grayson. She paused, backspaced, then typed again, "Why I Took It Back. Not because I had to, because I could." She stared at the screen. Carla leaned in from the side. "That going to them?" Martha shook her head. "Number, not them. Just, for the record." Rachel placed a cup of tea beside her. "Yours, not theirs." Martha nodded once. But just as she clicked "Save As," a loud knock echoed through the floorboards from upstairs. Sharp, impatient. Rachel looked toward the ceiling. That didn't sound like Dad. Carla's jaw clenched. "That's not family knocking like that. That's entitlement." Martha closed the laptop with a soft click and looked at the box again. Still full. Still hers. She stood. Let them knock. And this time, she didn't go up. She opened a new folder. And kept writing. It started with whispers through the vent. Martha had grown used to sound moving through the old bones of the housepipes clicking, voices floating, but this was different. "Just to get an idea," Kyle said, low but audible. "Not binding, just ballpark." She paused mid-keystroke. Upstairs, footsteps creaked across the hardwood. Silence. Then the back door clicked shut. The next day, a voicemail landed on her line. "Miss Grayson, I'm calling from Oak Haven Realty. Apologies for the direct contact. We had someone inquiring about your home, but your name came up as sole trustee on file, and I just wanted to confirm before proceeding further." Martha let the message play twice. Then she deleted it and sat very still. So, that was the game now. She dialed Carla first. "Ballpark estimates," she said flatly. "He's circling with a realtor. Want me to spike his tires or call the lawyer?" Just Miles, Martha said, but a smile tugged faintly at one corner of her mouth. Carla didn't hang up until she heard the click of Martha's call connecting to the legal office. Miles answered on the first ring. "Still breathing, Grayson?" he asked lightly. "Yes, but my son's trying to price the house out from under me." His voice changed. "Do you want to file?" "I want a paper trail. On record. A formal notice of unauthorized interest. If he even breathes near a listing agreement again, I want him flagged. I'll draft it and send a certified copy to the county," Miles replied. "Do you want him notified directly?" Martha considered. "Blind copy him. Just enough ink to sting." That afternoon, she opened her file safe and pulled out the original trust deed. The pages were crisp. She checked the embossing, then slid them into a new folder labeled Asset Defense, for distribution only. She wasn't angry. She was awake. The formal letter arrived 2 days later. Kyle must have opened it near the mail slot, because the envelope lay discarded on the entry table. No one said a word at dinner. Not even Todd, who'd normally crack a joke to relieve the tension. Martha stirred her tea in silence. The next morning, the back garden gate was latched. Carla had come by early and oiled the hinges herself. "Can't have trespassers," she said, a little too cheerfully, while sipping a mug of coffee that said University of Colorado class of '68. Rachel found Martha just before lunch, standing at the narrow window of the basement, eyes on the ridgeline beyond the trees. "There's something upstairs for you," she said. Martha turned. On the inside of the basement door, pinned where Erica's chore lists used to hang, was a single post-it, pale, yellow, Rachel's unmistakable handwriting. "You already won. No punctuation. No doubt." Martha touched the corner of the note, then folded it carefully and placed it inside her journal. Upstairs, Kyle paced by the window on a call, gesturing with a manila folder. His voice was muffled, but the tone said everything. Frustration, confusion, quiet unraveling. Martha didn't need to listen. She'd already changed the ending. That evening, she logged into the property database and saw Miles's affidavit posted and sealed. Grayson Residence Owner Affirmation filed the 25th of March. Below that, a line of public comment. No third-party actions permitted. Unauthorized attempts may result in legal review. She printed the page, slid it into her binder, and clicked the lamp off beside her desk. Then she opened her notebook. The 26th of March. Attempted valuation blocked. Ownership uncontested. Records affirmed. The ink bled slightly on the loop of the R, and just as she closed the notebook, the power flickered once. Then again. Outside, clouds rolled in low and wide over Boulder. A storm was coming. But in the house that still bore her name, not a single light went out. Erica was in the hallway with a tablet when Rachel walked past. The screen showed a slideshow wide angles, warm filters, a perfectly staged living room that looked more like a catalog than a home. "Can you stand by the front window for a minute?" Erica asked, not looking up. "We need some natural light and a friendly face." Rachel stopped. "For what?" "Photos," Erica said, her voice too breezy. "Just getting some preliminary materials together. Nothing official, just in case." "In case of what?" Rachel asked. Erica smiled thinly. "It's just good to be ready. You know, for when the family finally decides to do something useful with the property." Rachel's jaw tightened. "It's not your house." Erica's smile didn't move. "It's not yours either." Rachel walked away. Later that day, Kyle was holding court in the living room again, an open beer in hand, his voice pitched just high enough to carry. "There'll be some changes coming," he told Todd and Marianne. "Nothing final yet, but big picture stuff. Legacy-type stuff." He gestured vaguely toward the windows, like the walls themselves were already in escrow. Todd nodded absently. Marianne sipped her mimosa and said, "Hope it has a hot tub. Whatever's next, I mean." Martha stood in the doorway just long enough to hear it. Then she stepped back outside. The mower was old but reliable. She'd had it tuned the previous spring before all this nonsense began. It rattled some on the turns but still cut clean. The lawn was long overdue, so she mowed it. Every row, every edge. The neighbors waved as they passed. Some slowed down, some nodded. Carla pulled up just as Martha was winding the cord around the mower's handle. "You know," Carla said, stepping out of the car, "I could have sent someone." "I'm not broken," Martha replied. Carla looked at the yard. Number. But they're going to be if they keep underestimating you. They walked to the porch together. Carla leaned on the railing. You don't need to swing. Just stand taller. Martha nodded, wiping her hands on a dish towel tucked in her waistband. Inside, Erica was tearing through the kitchen drawers. Where are the keys? She barked, loud enough for the whole house to hear. The spares are ones for the patio doors and garden gate? They were in the top drawer. Kyle, did you move them? Kyle didn't answer. Martha stepped through the door like she'd been waiting for a cue. They were never yours to lose. Erica turned. Excuse me? The keys, Martha said. You're looking for something you never had a right to. Erica blinked. This isn't your call. But it was. Rachel stepped into the kitchen, arms crossed, and said nothing. Kyle finally entered, rubbing his temples. What's going on? Mom changed the locks again, Erica said. And now the keys are gone. Kyle looked at Martha. She didn't flinch. The locks are secure. The house is mine. And if you say otherwise, I suggest you read your mail. Rachel's eyes flicked to her father, waiting for him to deny it. He didn't. The room went still. Outside, wind lifted the edge of the porch flag. The realtor's cardance clipped to the inside of Kyle's manila folder lay in the trash can beside the fridge. The listing had never made it online. Martha walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled it open, and placed a new sheet of paper inside handwritten, folded, sealed, labeled in pen, "To whom it does not belong." Then she turned and went downstairs without another word. The sun dipped below the ridge outside. Upstairs, no one followed. And in the drawer where the keys used to be, there was only the sound of absence. By morning, the world was quiet under white. Snow blanketed Boulder in slow silence, thick, clean, undisturbed. The kind of snow that made everything look peaceful even when it wasn't. Power lines bowed lightly, trees lined in powdered grace. The porch railing shimmered. Martha stirred early. The basement was warmer now. She'd lined the walls with thermal curtains and placed a draft stopper beneath the door. Practicality had always been her rebellion. The kettle whistled. She poured 2 mugs. Upstairs, the lights flickered once twice and then steadied. She climbed slowly, each step measured, not heavy. Rachel was already near the front door, boots halfway on, coat zipped to her chin. She looked back and smiled when she saw the mug. Perfect timing, she said. Martha handed it over, fingers brushing briefly. 10 minutes, she said. Then I'll join you. Outside, Rachel's breath plumed in small clouds as she began to shovel the walkway, methodical, rhythmic. Martha stood at the window, watching her for a moment before putting on her own coat and stepping out. They worked in tandem. Shovel, pause, sip, shovel, pause, adjust scarf. Across the street, Mr. Feldman gave them a thumbs up from his porch. Snow crunched under their boots, the only sound besides the distant hiss of tires on slush. From inside, Kyle watched. He stood at the upstairs window, behind the gauzy curtain, holding a coffee cup he hadn't refilled. His face was unreadable, part shadow, part regret, part confusion about where exactly he'd lost the thread. He never came out. Back inside, Erica was curled in a blanket on the couch, scrolling through her phone with increasing agitation. She tapped, refreshed, tapped again. Still nothing. The family group thread was silent. More accurately, she had been removed. The last message still visible to her read, "Thanks for the shovel pics, Rachel. Can't believe Grandma still beats us all to the walkway." Below it, the words, "You are no longer a participant in this conversation." She tossed her phone onto the couch, hard enough that the case popped off. No one noticed. No one cared. At noon, a delivery van pulled into the drive, tires crunching over ice. The driver stepped out, placed a bouquet at the front step, and left without ringing the bell. Rachel opened the door first. She brought the flowers in, laughing softly. "From Carla," she called down the stairs. "You're going to like this." Martha emerged, gloves still in her hand. The bouquet was bold, deep reds, oranges, even gold-tipped lilies vivid against the monochrome of the house. Tucked between the stems was a small card, handwritten in Carla's firm block print, "To the one who holds the heat." Martha smiled without showing teeth. She placed the bouquet on the table in the sunroom, beside the folded linens and a small glass jar of cinnamon sticks. Then she walked out front. The shovel was still leaning against the porch. She moved it aside, stepped down to the bottom step, and knelt carefully. From her coat pocket, she withdrew a slim brass plaque. She'd ordered it 3 weeks earlier. Quietly, paid in cash. She unscrewed the rusted house number from the wood siding and slid the plaque into place. 4 short screws. A firm hand. When she stepped back, it gleamed even through the snowfall. Grayson Residence, Est 1974. Simple, unmistakable, permanent. Rachel came to stand beside her. Looks good. Martha nodded. It's not for them. It's for the house. Behind them, Erica pulled the curtain wider, then let it fall again. Inside, Kyle finally poured his coffee down the drain. That evening, while the snow thickened, while the wind curled around the eaves like fingers trying to press in, Martha sat at her desk and updated her journal. The 28th of March. First snow. House held. Warmth intact. Then she placed Carla's card inside the cover like a pressed flower. And in the dark, while others tried to regroup, she opened a fresh envelope and began to write, not to explain, but to remind. Because the house had spoken, and it had chosen. It began with a roll of masking tape and 2 Sharpie-sewn fine tip, one thick. Martha set them both on the folding table downstairs, beside a fresh stack of banker's boxes. Rachel stood nearby in an old college sweatshirt, sleeves pushed to her elbows. You sure? She asked. Martha didn't hesitate. Past time. They worked in silence, save for the low hum of the space heater. Every box was labeled with methodical care. Towels, guest use only, spare bedding, queen, kitchen overflow, not mine. They folded the navy flannel sheets Erica had once praised for adding a cozy touch, and stuffed them into vacuum-sealed bags. Martha tied up a bundle of throw pillows with a ribbon presentation mattered, even in rejection. The old air mattress, half deflated, was rolled and taped. Todd's extra snowboard boots, still dusty from one trip and forgotten for months, were wrapped in plastic and boxed with a note, returned unused. By noon, the basement looked less like Exile and more like a decision. The cot was gone. The small table had been cleared. The only remaining piece of furniture was the writing desk, Martha's chair neatly tucked beneath it, the brass lamp casting a steady glow. Rachel placed the final lid on the final box and exhaled. Do we tell them? We show them, Martha said. The movers arrived just after lunch. 2 men, both local, both polite. They worked quickly, quiet hands, few questions. They carried box after box up the narrow steps and through the front door, depositing everything into a labeled van. Erica caught sight of them halfway through. She stepped into the foyer barefoot, one hand on the banister, eyes narrowed. What is this? Rachel didn't answer. She just handed over a clipboard and a pen. Martha followed behind, her pace unhurried. In her hand was a sealed envelope. She placed it on top of the final box Todd's, marked living room extras. Taped to the lid was a small card. Thank you for your stay. No more room. Erica snatched it, tore it open, read it. Her voice cracked. You had no right. Martha didn't blink. Correction, I always had it. For once, there was no comeback. Just the hollow clink of the front door closing behind the last box. Kyle emerged from the kitchen, mug in hand, like someone walking into the wrong meeting. What happened? He asked quietly. No one answered him. Rachel stood midway up the stairs, arms folded. She didn't speak, didn't move, just watched her father the way someone might study a portrait too long on the wall. The movers drove off. The living room, once overtaken by Todd and Marianne's seasonal debris, stood open, sparse, breathing again. Martha walked to the fireplace and reached up to adjust a crooked frame. Her wedding photo, recentered. Behind her, Erica let out a long breath through her nose, the kind meant to invite confrontation. It didn't come. I don't care what legal tricks you've pulled, Erica said finally. You think you've won something? You've just made everyone hate being here. Martha turned, calm, clear-eyed. Good, she said. Then they'll leave faster. She left the room without another word. Kyle said nothing. His hand curled once around the handle of his mug. Then he turned and walked out the back door. Erica remained, lips pressed into a line, holding a shredded ribbon from one of the boxes. Rachel stepped down the final stair and crossed the room. She opened the front hall closet and placed a small sign on the inside wall, something Martha had printed that morning. Basement use restricted. Owner authorization only. Then she closed the door and turned to Erica. You should start packing. Erica didn't respond. Later that evening, Martha returned to the basement. A cup of tea, still steaming. The air smelled of clean linen and dust finally disturbed. She opened her journal. The 30th of March. Basement cleared. Claims revoked. Noise reduced. She underlined revoked. Outside, clouds gathered again. And this time, the door at the top of the stairs remained unlocked, because she didn't need it closed. Not anymore. The manila folder was thicker than before, its clasp a little bent from repeated use. Miles laid it flat on the table and smoothed the edges like he was about to present a sacred text. This is it, he said. The final amendment. Signed, witnessed, notarized, all assets property, cash, investments transfer to Rachel E. Grayson, sole heir, no contingencies. Martha nodded, eyes steady. And the clause? She asked. Miles flipped to the last page and tapped the lower corner. Paragraph 11. Contesting this trust in any form, formal or informal, results in full forfeiture of any residual support or previous financial allocation. No court will reverse it. It's sewn tight. Carla sat in the corner with her arms folded, eyes sharp. Iron seam. Rachel stood quietly beside the table, her fingertips grazing the edge of the folder. She didn't speak yet. Her breath came slowly. Miles turned to her. When you're ready. Rachel picked up the pen. Her signature came smooth and sure, an echo of Martha's above it. Side by side, they looked like bookend zone closing a chapter, one opening the next. Martha placed her hand gently over Rachel's once she'd finished, then looked at Miles. Make 3 copies, one to the bank, one to the county, and one. She looked at Carla for the fireproof box. I'm on it, Carla said, already reaching for her bag. And I brought s'mores if we feel like celebrating like teenagers. But the celebration didn't come. Not right away. That evening, the doorbell rang. Rachel answered. A courier stood with a padded envelope. No return address, just M. Grayson in tight cursive across the front. Inside, a single page, typed. Cold. We need to talk. This doesn't have to end like this. Let's find a middle ground. Erica. Rachel read it twice before handing it to her grandmother. Martha's expression didn't change. She set the letter on the kitchen table beside her tea. The steam curled around it but didn't soften a single word. Carla took one glance, then snatched the page without asking. What are you doing? Rachel asked. What she won't, Carla muttered. She walked to the fireplace, opened the iron grate, and struck a match. The flames licked high, eager. Carla held the paper by its corner. Middle ground, my ass. The letter curled and crumpled into black lace. Martha didn't look away. That night, she returned to the basement, but not to retreat. She carried the final signed copy in a navy folder and slid it into the file safe. Next to it, she placed a framed photo of Rachelage, 15, braces and all, kneeling beside the first garden bed they'd built together. When she stood, Rachel was in the doorway. Still holding the original trust draft, the one with only Martha's name. You're sure? She asked. Martha crossed the room, pulled her into an embrace, and whispered, This house breathes because you never shut me out. Rachel's shoulders sank into the hug, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Upstairs, a car door slammed. Kyle. Martha didn't look toward the window. She let go of her granddaughter and walked to the drawer beneath her desk. From it, she pulled a thick envelope already sealed. On the front, it read, To be opened only if challenged. In red ink, below that, challenge equals forfeit. Rachel looked at it. You really covered every corner. No, Martha said, voice like weathered oak. I just stopped pretending they'd ever respect the ones I left open. Upstairs, the door creaked. Kyle called her name. Once, then again. Martha didn't respond. She turned off the lamp. In the dark, Rachel reached out, found her hand, and held it. And somewhere behind them, the house exhaled, locked, not out of fear, but to preserve what mattered. The crocuses bloomed early that year. They pushed up in soft yellows and purples, dotting the edge of the garden path like nature's own confetti. Carla arrived with a crate of folding chairs and a half-finished mimosa at 9 a.m. sharp. We're going full Martha Stewart today, minus the criminal record, she announced. hoisting a tray of quiches with one hand and a vase of lilacs with the other. Martha chuckled softly and unlocked the side gate. I never hosted brunch to prove anything. You didn't. But we are. By 10, the yard had begun to fill not with obligation, but with intention. Former colleagues from the university ambled in with fruit salads and sun hats. Neighbors brought coffee, carafes, and stories about broken sprinklers and birds nesting in gutters. Even Joan, who hadn't left her condo all winter, shuffled in with a thermos of herbal tea and a lemon loaf she swore was still warm. Rachel sat on the porch rail in jeans and an old concert tee, strumming a quiet tune on her acoustic. Her voice hummed beneath the chatter, a low thread stitching everything together. No one talked about inheritance. No one mentioned real estate. They talked about book clubs, about what bulbs to plant in the shade, about Martha's hydrangeas, which had somehow survived the frost better than anyone's prize. Inside the house, the windows were open. The curtains moved with the breeze, not to conceal but to invite. Martha walked through each room slowly, once, just to take it all in. The house didn't feel like a fortress anymore. It felt like a quilt stitched, mended, softened. Near the fireplace, 2 former students asked to see the study. It's just a room, Martha warned gently. But when she opened the door, they both paused. Sunlight cut across the bookshelves. The desk was tidy. A copy of the professor's house lay face up on the armchair, as if mid-conversation. It doesn't feel like just a room, one of them said. Martha didn't reply. She just nodded and stepped aside. She returned to the sunroom 10 minutes later, plate in hand, and sat next to Carla on the bench swing. You're smiling, Carla said. I am. Feels weird, huh? A little, Martha admitted. Then she added, but not wrong. Carla raised her glass. To new seasons and better guest lists. Rachel stood at the edge of the porch with her guitar still slung over her shoulder. She cleared her throat lightly, drawing the group's attention. I just want to say, she began, voice sure but soft, thank you for showing up, for seeing what this place really is. She looked toward her grandmother. The best homes aren't the ones built perfectly. They're the ones we protect, the ones we fight for quietly or loudly, the ones that outlive the noise. There was a small round of claps. Nothing showy, just enough. Martha caught Rachel's eye and offered the barest nod, something between pride and peace. Later, when the chairs were folded and the dishes stacked by the sink, Martha slipped back into the study alone. She opened the middle drawer of the desk and pulled out a photo in a worn silver frame. George. It had been packed away for nearly a year. Not out of grief, but out of timing. She dusted it off with her sleeve, ran a thumb over the glass, and set it back on the shelf where it had always belonged. You were right, she said aloud. The room didn't answer. It didn't have to. She turned off the light, letting the afternoon sun do the rest. Downstairs, Rachel was humming again. Carla was in the kitchen humming along. And then Martha's phone buzzed once in her pocket. A message. From Kyle. 4 words. We should have treated you better. She stared at it. No reply. She slid the phone into the drawer beside her late husband's picture and walked out of the room. The upstairs bedroom had been silent for years. It hadn't been locked, just unused, slowly overtaken by storage bins and forgotten holiday linens. But this morning, it smelled of lavender oil and clean paint. The walls were no longer beige, but a soft bone white, the kind that caught morning light like a secret. The curtains new, linen, sea foam swayed gently with the breeze from the open window. Martha sat in the corner armchair, her legs tucked beneath a wool throw, her hands wrapped around a warm mug. The air was still, the kind of stillness that didn't beg to be filled. She didn't hear Carla come up the stairs, but she felt the presence certain, light-footed. You look like someone who finally picked their seat, Carla said, setting down a folded newspaper and a second mug of coffee on the desk beside her. Martha smiled without turning. Took me long enough. Carla scanned the room. The fresh coat of paint, the books already stacked by the window bench, the small tulip vase on the sill. You did good. Footsteps pattered up the hall. Rachel appeared in the doorway, hair damp, holding a fresh set of towels. She took one look at her grandmother, then the desk, then the sunlight on the floorboards. Feels right now, she said. Martha simply nodded. When they'd cleared out the basement, Rachel had asked if she wanted to repaint it, maybe make it cozy. Martha had said no. The basement had done its job. But it was never hers. Not really. This room, the one she'd first painted with George the summer they moved in this room, was hers again. She waited until they'd gone. Then she stood, slowly, and crossed to the desk. The file box waited beneath it. Black steel, fireproof, familiar. She opened it. Inside, everything. The trust documents, copies of the letters, the notarized affidavit, a pressed gardenia from the first bloom this spring, Carla's card, George's note, her journal. One final sticky note from Rachel Yu were always the heart of it. She touched nothing, just let her eyes pass over it all. She closed the lid and latched it softly. Across the yard, the garden thrived, planted in rows now. Nothing ornamental unless it grew wild. The tulips nodded under the morning wind. The rosemary was full. Even the dogwood near the porch had begun to flower again. Downstairs, the kitchen clattered, Carla refilling the water kettle. Rachel humming something low, familiar. Martha stayed in the room. It didn't feel like a retreat. It felt like a summit. On the desk beside the folded newspaper sat a small brass plaque. She had commissioned it quietly from the same craftsman who etched the one outside. It wasn't meant to be seen by anyone but her. It read, "Not inherited, earned, protected." Martha reached out, tilted it slightly so it caught the light better, and let her fingers rest beside it. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. The house no longer whispered at her. It listened. She picked up her pen and opened a fresh page in her journal. The 31st of March. Original bedroom reclaimed. Garden healthy. Peace is not silence. It is choice. She paused, the ink drying in slow lines. Then she wrote one last sentence. They put me below ground. I put them off the record.